Hello guys, today instead of making one of my empire videos, I'm going to make a video mostly concerned about Russia. Russia is now accepting to be the second strongest country in the world, but because the situation in Ukraine, it does not look like it should deserve its second place. So we're gonna look at what if it was actually powerful. We will look at the Ukraine war and we'll see what happens after that. Okay, so let's see what happens. So we start with seeing the situation in Ukraine, where they managed to push from Crimea to try to occupy Ukraine's major cities. But while this is happening, the US does some secret stuff as it supplies Ukraine with well-trained American troops disguised as Ukraine soldiers. With this, Ukraine was able, with the help of these American troops, without Russia knowing, they managed to push it back so much. This is also with American tanks, but they are disguised as Ukrainian tanks. Russia is surprised by this and says it will use nuclear detonation to destroy Ukraine, but America says that it has already provided it with nuclear defense system. As this is happening, Ukraine manages to start a push into its Russia from here. It was surprise to most of the people as Ukraine is now became the invader of Russia. As they quickly do this, Russia decides to surrender in order to prevent the capturing of Moscow, because the Russian army is way too exhausted. So, looking at this peace treaty, we will. By the way, Russia will still remain red after everything because I don't really want to color him back. So looking at this peace treaty, we see that Ukraine finally receives the Crimean area and also receives a big chunk out of Russia. When I mean big, it's a huge chunk, not a really big chunk, but a good chunk of Russia. Sorry. Russia is angered by this, and the world is surprised at how when a small country defeats a big country like Russia. After some time after this, Russia signs the peace treaty with Ukraine that it's no longer allowed to invade it and would cause NATO's article to join. After this, Russia thinks about something and sends some forces to Ukraine, not known forces or not militarized forces. So Ukraine has shifted into a civil war as these three landings are not landings but basically openings are really suspiciously close to Russia. Even though Russia denies any claims of being related to this, the rebels are still attacking. Since most of the Ukraine military is on this side after the war, they managed to take all these rebels over here from here completely out. But since they are not on these sides of the area, these rebels are suspiciously supplied with Russian type militaries, even if it's in the mainland Ukraine. Russia still denies that it has any causes for this thing. From Crimea, even it is pushing up. The Ukraine military now has to scramble as this part is cut off from the Ukraine and is quickly encircled by the rebels. As many cities are captured since there is barely any troops here, this part of Ukraine basically, falls to the, not the entire country. Basically, this falls to the rebels. As they do this, they found more Russian or more things, and they managed to connect with the Ukraine. And while Ukraine military is finally arriving on the scene, they managed to push back some of the protesters, but they managed to make a defensive line all over here. Even in Crimea, they managed to push them back, but makes a defensive line. Before they could go around, they managed to connect and supply troops and things with Crimea. As Ukraine, most of its parts is just gone, they actually managed to capture more as they break the defensive line and capture Kiev. So after this, Ukraine decides to surrender. Let's see, looking at the peace treaty of the rebels. So part of this peace treaty was giving Russia back its old lands, but still keeping Crimea, and basically keeping making Ukraine more communist now. Russia decides, since this tactic works so well, if it was Russia, it decides to send these special forces to other post-Soviet post-Soviet countries. But it also sends some of their troops to the Balkans for some reason. This is saw as there's a Russian type of military crossing this canal that Turkey alerts NATO of. NATO wants Russia, if this is any type of attack, they would interfere. Russia says it's not any type of attack, but tells Serbia something. So let's see what happens next. So Russia now does this with the Balkans. Balkans were not prepared for this, as Estonia quickly gets cut off, and Latvia's and Lithuania's coast is gone. Poland immediately tries to send troops to it, but instead of Russia, Belarus sends troops, since this is not activating any article. As they quickly cut off Poland's supplies, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia basically surrenders to the rebels, which turn out to be another communist rebels, and they basically keep the same type of country, just more communist. The Russia is really happy with this, as everything is going to plan, as NATO is getting more suspicious and makes another sanction on them that Belarus cannot do any of these again. Russia is still happy, since this is not a part of any of its plans. This is all part of its plans. Let's see what happens. So now the Yugoslavian states are at a civil war. So suspiciously, Serbia is in it. But Serbia suspiciously also lets the rebels take over quickly. This is surprising the world, since why would Serbia would just let it, even though it's trying to defend its country? Now they have the full force of the Serbian military, as they quickly enforce Kosovo and manage to take North Macedonia. The Bosnia and Herzegovina is literally, disappeared as soon as Croatia and the Yugoslavian states. As soon as I forgot the country name. The NATO looks at this and starts a double operation. Does not let Russia take the last laugh this time, and also sends some troops here. We're quickly taking over this side. This is a complete surprise, as they still have not successfully won the war, as these rebels have declared war on this Yugoslavian state, or the rebels over here. As they quickly push their entire military forces down where over here, quickly taking over the Bosnia and Croatia. As they quickly take back Montenegro. As they quickly meet the Serbia, Kosovo, and North Macedonia military, they quickly go from North Serbia and sending troops from air through Albania to meet with Kosovo, and quickly take half of North Macedonia. At this point, they have no military left, since they basically have US, NATO equipped troops, and as they surrender. Let's see this peace treaty. So, looking at this peace treaty, we see that the Yugoslavian state has fully reassembled and now joins NATO. This is greatly angers Russia, as now they have lost an ally, and it greatly helps NATO. Russia at this point knows that NATO has caught up to their tricks, and now decides to make their propaganda true, and has fully upgraded its military using its budget. Now they look at the CSTO members over here, and they actually invite all post-Soviet states over here. This caused high tensions, as more countries join join NATO, such as Sweden and Finland, which greatly affects the Russian national security, as they quickly decide to do some secretive things, even though that Sweden and Finland was their next target of corrupting. Not Sweden, but Finland, because they are the only one that can stop them from getting St. Petersburg. Over here, the most of the Europe has joined, except of course Switzerland, neutrality, and even Ireland joins, including Iceland. I mean, they were already in that, but now Ireland, Sweden, and Finland, and all of Europe except uh, Switzerland join on NATO. Russia has one more country it wants to corrupt. Let's see what country it is. Oh, so we see that Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan has been corrupted by these rebels. This time these rebels are equipped with more advanced weapons. Not Russia still is denying any relation to this, as Turkey tries to quickly prepare troops. But as Azerbaijan is gone, basically is around the Russian rebels before they can send supplies. This is the only province which is left, and they are just having a hard defensive line over here. With no things left, Russia decides to secretly let the rebels through the countryside over here and set a navy to make a landing here, cutting them quickly off and eliminating them. As the peace treaty, it's basically the same thing with the Balkans. They become more communist. Now, with this, the Russia decides to re-bring the Soviet Union. No, not the Soviet Union. Still has one more conquest to do, and that's in Mongolia. Okay, so Russia decides to start its invasion in Mongolia. So since Mongolia is basically an open field, Russian troops come from here, go around from here, and mostly capture areas from the Russian border. Since Mongolia basically is just a plain field, Mongolia decides to surrender. Peace treaty. Yeah, we know how this peace treaty with the Russians go. Boom, it's not communist, it's just annexed. Well, this newfound land, which is bigger than Russia's old empire, Russia is kind of looking as a scary threat. So they try to make a blockade from Russia to expand anymore. So this decides that they will try to corrupt Iran. Yep, the NATO is gonna decide to do some reverse cards against Russia. But before that happens, this happens. Well, oh boy, big Soviet Union is back. But as soon as they unite and trying to reinforce troops all over the area, NATO starts its reunification of Iran. They quickly take over their north border with Turkey sending supplies here, and over here Saudi Arabia and more is sending supplies here. Russia is trying to send supplies here to prevent this from happening. But they have a two-way war, and Turkey is already supplying them with troops and creating defensive line here from Russian supplies to come over here. As this is going, there is a lot of supplement over here, but rare supplement here since there is barely any allies here. But they still manage to meet up with the Iranian military, mostly captured. But they still manage to make a hard defensive line, and actually manages to push back some of them from the main thing over here. Iran is basically just dead. There's nothing it can do. So with their last left, it decides to not meant that surrenders, and it becomes official alignment of NATO and is more democratic. So awkward. So with this happening, Russia has officially lost an ally and like another front to expand to. because then it could have just not expand. Anyway, it's literally blocked on all fronts. They could betray their friend Iran to get some extra land, but now they can't invade Afghanistan. It's impossible to occupy. Pakistan could be good. Maybe China would do, but it will just bring more tensions with them. China is like a good ally, so it barely has nothing to do. As NATO is. Oh wait, did I really forget the Balkans? I forgot the Balkans and Kaliningrad. Wow, that's so stupid. For this, they decide to build defensive line in case of war. So let's look at the defensive lines of each each country. So these are some of the defensive lines of the countries. As you see here near Finland, Russia creates a big defensive line to protect St. Petersburg, as Finland also creates a defensive line here in case Russia tries to invade. In these lines they have nuclear defensive systems, because over here they have some nuclear spacemen and they can shoot it. Over here they have a huge defensive line going from Lithuania across to Ukraine. They also, over here the NATO has a pretty big defensive line going from from Poland through Slovakia, Hungary, and ending in Romania. Over here Turkey and Iran make a pretty big defensive line right here. As Russia also makes a big defensive line here, separating this entire time into the in case of invasion over here. Even over here they go from, I think it is Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan border over here, and Iran creates a little border defense over here. It's not only around these areas where there is a defensive system, there's also around here. Yes, Russia decides to start to occupy these areas over here, as Japan notices this and notifies the US. But over here, as this is still remaining as a wasteland, okay, these areas over here can be occupied, but the rest remains a wasteland. So they create a pretty big defensive line over here in case of any attacks. That's a lot of land to sacrifice, but over to the US, after hearing this from Japan, they start a defensive line with Canada right here away from the Canadian border. So let's see how this war will play out. So even though I don't use nukes in my video, don't worry, I'm not gonna nuke a country, but Russia did a little boom here and a boom here. This was seen as a threat by Russia, as these booms will leak into the defensive lines over here and will also leak into nearby islands. NATO declares this as a threat and does something with Russia. Does a little boom here and a boom here using Turkey and Iran. This really angers Russia, as it quickly declares war, or not declares war on, but does a boom boom. It almost does a boom boom in Istanbul, but the nuclear was shot down and it ended up hitting around here. This was still seen as a threat, and this has activated NATO. So let's see what happens. So as it declares war, NATO declares war on Russia. Since Russia was already prepared for this, it quickly pushes here from down to Turkey and quickly meets up with the defensive line over here, quickly capturing the northern and parts of Iraq. Iranian troops are pushed back to their thing over here. There's a defensive line. This is captured. As intense fightings are coming out, over here Moldova is captured. Moldova managed to refrain from being part of the Soviet Union due to being after Russia's failure attempt in Yugoslavia. They tried to go for Moldova, but NATO over here. Since they are already stationed, they managed to go here and cut off the main defensive line into two. Poland is right here and Romania is here. This is instead success because Moldova does not have a defensive line created, because it would go through half of their country. Poland, even though it goes after their country, is quickly trying to hold out on their defensive line. Russia was definitely prepared for this. But in this scenario, Russia will be on the favor of Russia. Means Russia or the Soviet Union will have a huge favors against its side. So don't be angry at me if you think that NATO should win. Over here, the Russians pushed through from here, meeting with the Finnish defensive line. And that's all movements that is seen from Russia as they are preparing their navy to go to land in the United States. United States is preparing their troops and trying to station them around this border so in case if Russia attacks, it is not they can protect it. Well, another ally joins the war. So we see China, Japan, North Korea and Pakistan joining the war. This is definitely unexpected since the Pakistan opened a new front in Iran to face as they quickly capture the land over here. After the joining of China, Pakistan and North Korea, South Korea, Japan and Taiwan joins the war. They are not in a good position because United States is more protected on this side since Russian Navy is also over here. So it's not going to be like a very easy task to try to supply, Japan and South Korea and Taiwan. Over here, South Korea is pushed into in the capturing of Seoul. Over here, China invades Taiwan. And you might think, why is India not in this? Because due to its same strategical position, it cannot really fight China and Pakistan. Because the Soviets, they don't want to mess with the big guy. Plus, Russia was an ally of India, so it was mostly tense. But they are planning something, but we won't know just yet. So. But this is not all lost for the blue team, as Japan makes a landing over here in this island of Russia, capturing them. And also all these islands. The Russian Navy is trying to go and quickly try to bombard Japan. There is no usage of nukes in this video. You might see the nukes, but there will be no nukes on the country. So over here, they are still pushing with the still pushing Iran without any stopping. All the Iranian military is still not mobilized enough for this area. The Iran decides to make a not big but defensive line to stop the invasion. They make it right here and order all evacuation of all Iran troops. If you want to fight, they can fight, but this is a full evacuation. As this land is captured, this is a very hard line to hold since it's not as thick and as supported as this. This does not have artillery, nuclear defense system as these ones. So we might see something here as all the troops are in each area as most of South Korea is captured to the what it looked like in the Korean War. Japan they fully managed to capture this island over here, and also in the front in Europe, Romania manages to push out Russia from their lands. So Romania is full again and actually manages to liberate Moldova, which also follows with the liberation of rest of Hungary, Slovakia, and some of Poland, since Russia is really holding on to this. And also in Finland, the Finnish actually manages to push Russians, the Soviets now, out of their lands. With this, there is another ally joining the war. Since China's troops are basically over here and trying to keep occupied, and also sending troops to send over here, we see another ally join the war. Another ally and enemy join the war. So we see India and Afghanistan joining the war. You might tell that India was not in the war, but this is because now troops are everywhere. It will be an easy time for them. Afghanistan joins the war because, well, boom, boom, they are behind the defensive lines. Defensive line crumbles as they slowly are there. This defensive line crumbles. Well, Iran is quick to respond to this as they make their one final defensive line to protect the rest of Iran from capitulation. They make one big defensive line here to try to prevent any more things. With this, it caused the troops here to get. But since India joins the war and their troops are right around the border of Pakistan, China, they just do this. Kashmir area is captured. Over here, Islam. They have a heavy push. When I mean heavy push into Pakistan. And even remember what happened in the India Garden Empire video? Yep. Boom. 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 And also something's connecting with this. So yeah, India is just doing some naval air, you know what I mean, troops rain from the air as they quickly capture this part and meet up with these Indian supplying troops. Over here in the Himalayas, they managed to meet up with the rest of India as this is basically just mountain and there's no use, and this capitulates. Well, the fall of, the Pakistan troops, the fall of these Pakistan troops are retreated from here, which gives Iran this opportunity to hop over the defensive wall and do some re-liberation. Not too much re-liberation, but yeah, it's a good amount to protect. Over here, China is again scrambling for troops too, which caused South Korea to push back the North Koreans and Chinese, since all of them are retracted to protect China from India. With this, they have now got an invasion of North Korea. Why is it so big? I said an invasion of North Korea. Yes, even though Chinese troops are evacuated, they are not fully evacuated as over here. Here, there's bad news for Japan as this strength is retaken by the Soviets. And there are many naval as these also. There are so many naval battles coming here to stop Japan from invading, but there's still nothing left. Over here, back in the front over here, in Finland, it actually manages to actually cut this off from the Russian supply mine, which just basically caused. Well, basically just caused this. Yeah, this thing is fully captured by Finland. And it's a literal scramble for Russian troops to, get through the border, which caused some advancements to made through here. Liberation of more Poland, like most of Poland is liberated. You know what I mean? And is pushed against the Russian border. And also another push made into Russia that makes up of the defensive line over here. With this, Russian troops are all evacuated to not get killed, to protect and hold on the defensive line, which means this part of the Russian area is fully allied. You might tell this is Russia videos and why is it losing. You will see in a moment why it's a Russia video and it's not winning. Well, also these troops are re-evacuated to, keep with the protection of the, since of this, this is really looking bad for the, Axis powers, as India makes more pushes into Pakistan, but slow pushes since Pakistan troops arrive at the scene, but it's already captured since this is how much of it's left. More advancements into China is made, bigger since Chinese troops are yet to arrive, like bigger advance, like right around this bigger bit advance. But as soon as Chinese troops arrive, there are some pushes back of Indian troops. Here are pushed all the way back. Here are pushed, and they are trying to stop. Over here, North Korea is split in two again in the Korean War, as the defensive line is broken. But unfortunately, the Russian troops manages to make a landing over here. Not that big of a landing. Over here and over here, quickly taking over the island as Japan is trying to protect. Since this has to retract some troops, which causes this to come. After this, US finally decides to, do a sneak, like a really long invasion of Russia, sending troops from Hawaii, from here, and then it goes across the Pacific Ocean. It sneakily goes through Russian areas. Not like that, but it goes through over here through Russian areas and sends all troops into a crash landing here, like many troops. Which causes a landing of the United States to be made. The Russian military, since all of them was around here focusing, they did not expect an invasion from the north because most of this is frozen land. So with this, USA makes a big push into Russia, like a really big push against the populated areas over here. But Russia is quick to respond, as it does not sacrifice this defensive line to be just for grab, as it makes a quick defensive line here and makes one right here to cut off the United States. But because of this, the Russians have to retreat from here, causing full liberation of the island, and also a quick attack on this thing, capturing it again. Japan makes a landing here and tries to go behind the Russian troops, which causes them to try to quickly, basically, just destroy this front line and keep it, use most of the technology here. After this, they quickly made the jab. This is all captured and most Russian troops are defeated. But this is not. This is actually a tactic for Russia, since it's saving up for something big. As this much land is captured, most North Korea capitulates, and the landing over here is made from here. Russia decides to make as many defensive lines as it can to prevent them from getting to the main defensive line. They put one defensive line here. They basically connect this defensive line over, not this defensive line. But from here they make one more defensive line here. Not like that. Well, they just make a big encirclement over here. One more, and the rest of them, this is two sidely defended. So this much land is still unoccupied, while there is another defensive line here. There is a lot of defensive lines going on over here. But with this, USA decides to break through, send some troops over here to quickly invade this area. What the Russians didn't expect is for a naval landing to be here. No, they expected that to, but they didn't expect it to come so fast, as another naval landing is through the border and quickly connects with this as this rumbles and is being attacked. As this is captured. This much, it might look like it's going really bad for the blue team, but this is when Russia makes a threat to NATO that it would use its advanced troops against them. The NATO just takes this as a shrug, and they basically taunt Russia. By the time this is happening, Pakistan troops over here are done, and a liberation of southern Iran is made. And since Afghanistan is really hard to occupy, means it's impossible to occupy, they said that basically they don't occupy it, but they just quickly try to control it. They said that they won't control you, just occupy, which Afghanistan allows, which lets more of these to come. Sorry, not like that. More of these to come, which causes the breakthrough of this over here. Russia decides to, since they are not taking this threat as seriously, as this is also liberated, and they are literally pushed back to their border over here in the Caucasus, in the mountains. Russia, it might fall, as the world is seeing Russia as just another propaganda threat. This is if Russia was powerful, not if Russia was going to die. So Russia decides to use their propaganda threat as a real type of thing, as they quickly push through the Americans, since they are not prepared for their type of armor. They make huge pushes because of their armor, like huge because of their technology. America has good technology, but they not prepared for this type of technology. Pushed here, as they are pushed out over here, and they quickly try to make the biggest defensive line of the century. It's so thick that it actually manages to prevent the Russians from invading, as they are literally due to their thing, they became landlocked. This entire thing is just defensive lines, and also is to prevent. Here, since they are not taking that threat so seriously, same thing happens. Japanese troops are kicked out, which causes Japan to do the same thing as America and make this a whole defensive line. In the Russia will take further things and literally withdraw all its troops from China, which causes China to slowly crumble, as Taiwan is slowly liberated, and major bombarding of the Chinese coast, which leads to multiple big naval landings if they're right here, capturing of this island, right here another, and right here, which causes these major cities to get captured. This is also pushed through as they quickly meet up. Russia decides to make one of the biggest, if not the biggest, defensive lines of history. Like bigger. They go all the way from here, all the way to their border here, from here, all the way through China, here. But since they are getting attacked here, they quickly make this defensive line. And basically their entire border against the other countries are defensive lines. All troops are retreated as China surrenders, I think. Did this work? Never mind, that makes the whole country surrender.
That's not a bee. That's a small insect. No, it's not like this. That's wings. The wings is
As they quickly, China surrenders to the major world powers. Okay, and we see something happening. So yeah, we see that United States has fallen to the civil war as the Communist Federation is trying to take over America. This is Russia's final attempt to get rid of this thing in the Americas it's holding down. This actually goes pretty successful, as America's ask for all troops retreat, meaning that Russia gets this full fortified land to themselves. And so after getting rid of the American threat, they turn and design their defensive line, as this is how the defensive line goes. Sorry. They have it all over the good, necessary borders. They connect this defensive line from the coast in case if Iran wants to send some ships here. Crimea is given like a red giveaway. The Turkey can just make a naval landing and they connect this, while just making this entire thing a defensive line. So this is the defensive line, and in the thing they just basically give away most of their northern coast just to be safe. Well, in the Americas, before the American troops arrive, they start to move. The Confederacy moves from here and tries to capture Washington as they make a connection through this. From here, they manage to go for California. With the help of this, they also capture full California, which is a big blow to the US. And Ohio is captured as soon as Mississippi. And then it is when the US troops arrive that they make one naval landing over here. Right behind troops, and they quickly start to capture their old homeland. As they're quickly capturing them because of the full force of the United States, over here they're actually managing to push back some rebels, because Canada also supplied them with troops. Over here they managed to recapture Mississippi. I'm not sure. That's definitely not Mississippi. I don't know why I said it 2 times. And they managed to get it back, block it back into this area over here. Oh no, at New York City, Rhode Island, and other ones. Over here they still find more success in taking over the lands, as they quickly make a defensive line in the south. Right, yeah. As the American troops invade all of this, they make a not an official defensive line, but a pretty good defensive line here. Yeah. Am I speaking way too loud? So, yeah, over here, since they have no supplies, the American troops push in and almost capture this area, as they fully captured this. Now only this is left. They are really not going to budge, but America manages to fund some Texians with guns, and they manage to break away from them, and they actually manage to reconnect the front with the United States, which is a big blow, as now these all lands are given back to the United States right here. And then this also is captured. Texas is fully liberated, as it's just Florida, Mississippi, and Louisiana. As the United States push from the front, since they are literally scrambling, they all flee to Florida, as it's the last line of defense. Soviet Union tries to fund these, but it's literally impossible. Here, there is literally controlled by everyone. Over here, China is about to die, so no. Over here, Japan, and over here, just the United States and Canada's military is waiting, so they can't really fund them. That means they're checkmated on most sides, but except this, they can only way they can actually go is like from this trade route. Going through Indonesia, not through this part of Indonesia, but not through this part of Philippines, but right here, and over here to go over here. But that's nothing. It's not going to happen, since it would take way too long, and that supplies would be to waste. Well, let's see what else happens. So we see that these are some supply lines going on from the United States to the countries fighting at the front lines. And the United States has finally kicked out the Communist Federation. But there is something bad is about to happen. Russia does not like the supply lines. It basically does not have any suppliers, so it does a bit of that. These are bombardments, okay? These are not nukes. And a bit of that. Yeah, they basically destroyed some ships going for supplies. This basically kind of stops supply lines from going on, as this literally cripples the Swedish supply lines as Russians push back the Finnish all the back, and they managed to take over their exclave, not exclave, but their border right over here.
What? My mom said that she'll give me a Lego set, but I don't know if I'll get one.
Over here and push it back, and they actually managed to quickly do what it was before, getting it all the way back to their defensive borders, but this time it's a little more aggressive, and they actually manages to break through and capture most of Sweden. With the capturing of Sweden, the Nordics are quicker to respond since Russia can't update the mountains, so they make one of the biggest defensive lines over here. They make a thick defensive line here, thick defensive line over here, going down to the coast of Sweden to make sure there is no naval landings being attended to.
Yeah.
Not that far, since the rest is right here, because the rest is controlled by the thing. So this is to protect. They can't go north, but they can't go anymore. Over here, they actually manages to push back. They managed to actually push back over here until their borders with Romania, Moldova, and even the Ukraine. This is a real thing, as they actually also manages to push back the Iraqs and Turkish across the border. Okay, but at a cost, since Iraq manages to get this entire part of manages to push it back to their defensive line over here, since Russians are calling all through.
What about Lego sets?
They don't care.
Yeah, I think we got Lego sets. Lego sets are amazing. You know, Lego guy.
So this is not gonna break, and the defensive, these remainings are just crumbled, so they are basically occupied by the blue team. So all it left is the Russian border with China and Kazakhstan. So
Gabriel.
So like that. Okay, so that's just. Well, they still are not able to invade into Russia, so a peace treaty is made. Let's look at this peace treaty. So, looking at the peace treaty, in Europe we see that the Baltics are reformed, and but in return for Finland, Russia took this and also annexed Moldova. Over here, they also re-liberate Georgia, and Georgia takes some land, and Azerbaijan and Armenia are split between Turkey and Iran. Iran takes Turkmenistan. Nothing really happens to Afghanistan, but also India right here took Pakistan, and I think Tajikistan. They took a really huge part out of China, making Nepal and Bhutan same like Lesotho, I think. Which is now there are one landlocked country in the world, which is Vatican City, San Marino, this one right here, I'm pretty sure it's called Lesotho, now Nepal and Bhutan. I don't think that should be like a chokehold, sorry. But yeah, so for China, it's now West is completely taken over by Taiwan. Korea gets this little chunk out of it, and Japan finally get their islands back. Okay, so that will do it for if Russia was powerful. See you in my next episode. Bye.